bad audio having bad audio. Okay, let me just show you how to edit some audio. Hello everyone, Digital Ben back here once again with you for another Digital Den mini class. Today we are talking about Adobe Audition, the audio editing program for the Adobe Creative Suite. And there are so many incredible things that you can do with audio. You can, we're mostly going to be talking about recording just yourself using a microphone, and maybe later in the class we'll get into adding some background music or something else to it to be able to show the different layers that you can have. So we'll mainly be working with just the one layer. But if you are interested in music, Adobe Audition is also incredible for being able to mix in your guitars and your drums and your piano and your vocals and everything all together to be able to make an incredible song. So anything that you're trying to do with audio, Adobe Audition is an incredible tool for that. So let's go ahead and get into the program. Here we have Adobe Audition opened up here, but no files have been opened yet. We've got our files section here so that whenever we start adding audio tracks, everything will be over here on the left-hand side so that we can click around and edit everything pretty easily. And then we've got our editor here on the right-hand side. So a pretty easy look to the program that's not super intimidating. To be able to open a new file, what we're going to do is we're going to come up here to File, New, and then we can click on Audio File here. We can also use the shortcut key Control-Shift-N, or we can click on this plus button here and click on it, New Audio File. So here is, there are 4 different options here when creating a new audio file. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to name our file, and we're just going to call it test file, right? The next thing on here is our sample rate. Now, what does that mean? If you haven't extensively studied audio, maybe the sample rate is not something that you're automatically familiar with. Essentially, what sample rate is a way to measure frequency, and the higher the number, the higher the quality, and also the higher the file size. The lower, of course, the smaller file size and the lower quality of what we're going to be hearing there. Now, you're pretty much never going to need to be able to use anything outside of 44,100 or 48,000 on there. Those are the 2 standards. 44,100 is your standard CD quality, and then 48,000 is your standard digital quality. But the human ear cannot really determine the difference between those two. Most of the time, some people swear that they can hear it, but you know, the human ear can only hear so much, basically, is what I'm getting at here. So long story short, 44,100 or 48,000 is what you're going to want to pick. Okay. Next up here, we have channels. Now, there are multiple channels that we have here. We have mono, stereo, and 5.1. First, let's talk about mono. Mono is literally just one channel. If you remember those old RCA cables, like you've got the yellow, the white, and the red. Now, the yellow is your video cable. The white and the red are your 2 audio cables. And that will allow for you to be able to make something in stereo, which means 2 different sources of audio coming into coming out of your speakers, right? But that is mono. It's just the one. So then we have stereo, and of course stereo means 2. And so if you are recording something, and say I have I have one person on my left that is recording something and one person that is on my right that is recording something out of a microphone that can read stereo, right? So our microphone is, let me move the, okay, so I have my microphone here in between me. If I have somebody recording something on this side of the microphone and somebody recording on this side of the microphone, the way that it will mix is that more of this person will appear on the left side and more of this person will appear on the right side. And that is the difference in stereo. Now, 5.1, of course, is all around us. So unless you're making a major movie, motion picture sort of situation, you're not going to really need to use 5.1. So the real options for us now are we going to choose mono or stereo? But to keep things easy, let's just click on mono. And then the last piece of information here is called bit depth. That is essentially the amount of information recorded here. And so, for example, on this picture of Yoshi that we have here, it is a pixel animation, or not animation, but a pixel graphic here. And then on this picture of Yoshi, we have a much higher quality, with more detail picture of him here, right? This one is higher quality because there's a lot more information. We can see all of the different shadows and everything, whereas on this picture of Yoshi, it's a lot less information overall. Audio works in the exact same way. As more information is recorded, we get a nice, more smooth curve. And then if there is lower information here, so for example, if I clicked on 8-bit depth, it would be a much more jagged lines, and it would not record nearly as much information. So let's go ahead and make sure that we have everything set up here. We've got 44-100 on our sample rate. We have got mono on our channels, and we have got 32 float on our bit depth there. That's going to be great for us. We're going to go ahead and hit OK. So now we have got our editor open here, and we can see the a little bit more information here, but we've not actually recorded anything yet. We can see over here on the right-hand side something that says dB and then a bunch of numbers below that. What that means is decibels, and that is the overall power or volume of our project here. So when I'm recording something, it will read the overall power of what I'm going to be recording, right? So I'm going to go ahead and hit the record button here, and I'm just going to say a message that we will edit around with, right? So here we go. The Kokomo-Howard County Public Library's Digital Den presents the Digital Den mini class Adobe Audition Part 1. All right, so I have finished recording my piece of audio here by hitting this record button, and now I am I'm going to stop that by pressing on this stop button here. Okay, so that is our entire piece of audio, and now we have our full editor open on here. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways we can move around our editor here. We've got our cursor here that we can move around with. And then we can also zoom in up here on the very top. We can click and grab that to be able to zoom into a specific piece of information, and click over here to the cursor to tell our program where we want to start editing. So say I want to really zoom in here at the very beginning, we're seeing more information the more that we zoom in. So if I'm all the way zoomed out and I'm looking over here on the far left, it looks like just kind of a blob of waveform. But if I zoom way in, we see a lot more ups and downs on those jagged lines, right? So that is more information that is being recorded there. Now, of course, with our actual message of what we recorded, we don't actually need everything here. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our first edit to this, and that is going to be that we're going to cut out the audio we don't want. Okay, so the way that I can listen back to the audio is either to click on this plus button here or to hit the space bar on the keyboard. I'm going to come over here to the spot right before my message starts. There's a little click in my voice there. I go something like that. So we want to get that out of there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to highlight that a little bit there, and then we're going to hit the delete button to be able to get rid of that. Now, I'm also going to highlight everything before that, and I'm going to delete that as well, so we start right into the message. The Kokomo-Howard County Public Library's Digital Den presents the Digital Den mini class Adobe Audition Part 1. Okay, I'm going to hit the space bar now that we have reached the end. I'm going to highlight everything that came after that, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit delete. And there we are. We have our entire file that we are going to be working on editing here for this project. So if we look over here on the decibel side here, this is going to tell us again the overall volume or power of our project. And it looks like the maximum of where my voice hit was about -9, and the minimum of where I am of where I'm speaking normally is right around here, which is going to be about -18 on here. Okay. That is a perfectly fine range for recording audio. And let me give you a better example of what decibels do. There's this function that is right here that's been sitting here, and it's called adjusting the amplitude. This is a function that will allow for us to be able to make something louder or quieter without adjusting, but basically adjusting the entirety of what I select to make it louder or quieter, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on the project and I'm going to highlight everything. And then I'm going to click this and drag it all the way to the right. And that is going to make us super loud, right? Now, is louder better? No, because there is a certain point at which volume becomes unstable, okay? Basically what happens is once the reading gets above 0, which the top here and the bottom here are both 0. Once it gets above 0, we start to hear like a clicking sound. It's when like our microphone cannot record the piece of information that is happening there. And it is essentially becoming, it is becoming broken. It is becoming bad. I don't really know how to describe it other than that it is what you do not want, okay? I can continue to further increase the volume even more and more and more. And then we get to a place where every inch of this project is above the range. Now, if I played any of this, I'm going to go ahead and mute the volume here so that nobody can hear this. But if I played this, you'll see down here the levels on the bottom. All of it is in this red range here, okay? Red is bad in this case, and green is good, and yellow is the sweet spot, right? So anywhere between -18 and -6 is what is referred to as the sweet spot. So what you want your audio to be is at -6 without going over that. Now, if it goes up to like -3 or even -1, which is really close to 0, that is still fine because it is not above 0. Once it gets to 0 or above, that's when it gets bad. But keeping something at about -6 for the most part is going to allow for us to have a little bit of wiggle room. We can go a little quieter. We can go a little bit louder without it becoming a problem. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to adjust the volume to try to get it back to right around where we were. Now, it should be worth noting that adjusting the amplitude does not damage your overall audio quality. So I can edit something using amplitude and then edit it back to what it was previously, and it will not it will not damage the audio. So we're working non-constructively is what I'm talking about here. Okay. There's also a history panel down here in the bottom left. So if you want to see all the changes that you made, you can do that if that's helpful for you. I usually drag that out of the way because I know what I'm working on, right? So continuing to talk about amplitude here, what we can do now is we can actually lower the overall volume as well. Now, if I lower it to a specific point, it will get to the point where the human ear can no longer comprehend a volume that low. And so it'll be just a flat line here, right? And so now if I hit play on this, our levels are below anything that we can even hear. So even if there is information here, it's not getting across to us. It's not something that we can understand. So now what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to increase the volume over and over and over again until I can get to a place where the information is something that can be read. So now here we are. We are back to right around where we were originally, but like I mentioned, we're working non-constructively. So if I hit play here and I turn the volume back on, the Kokomo-Howard County Public Library's Digital Den presents the Digital Den mini class Adobe Audition Part 1. So there you have it. So we are back to basically where we were without having adjusted the overall volume there, and now we have got our piece of audio that we can work further with. I hope that you enjoyed this first part of Adobe Audition. The program can become really complicated if you let it, but the basic tools are fairly simple. And if you're ever working with audio, there's not a program that I recommend more highly than Adobe Audition. So make sure that you come back for part 2, as we will be talking about more complex edits to be able to make that audio project that you're working on absolutely perfect. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.